Good morning. This is for VirtualPBX admin training. We'll be starting in just a few minutes. All right, thank you for waiting. So this is again to cover VirtualPBX admin training. If you're a vConsole customer, you're going to want to go under, actually, if you look here, under support, vConsole support, and there'll be training videos there for vConsole customers, and as well as guides, so you can look at screenshots and what have you. Today's training, we're going to cover basically all the features within Dash, how to set them up, and how to navigate through Dash itself. If you ever need to log in to Dash, you simply go to virtualpbx.com and you click on this login page, or this login link up here, which will take you to this particular page. Now, scrolling down, this is your login to get to your Dash and to your dashboard account. And just below that, this is the VirtualPBX web phone. So if you've added a web phone, you can click here to get to the web phone. And then finally, at the very bottom, the login for the vConsole. So you'll go here, opens up a new tab. And then here you want your email address. You're going to want your password. And then your account name, which is normally your company name. And you click on sign in. And voila, you're in your dashboard. Now this is basically a snapshot of your system in terms of how it's currently set up. You get your number of users here. Number of agents. Agents is specific to ACD queues. Your main numbers. So these are your numbers that customers typically dial to get to your business. These numbers all have the same main greeting, and they all route the same way. Your fax box number, basically for inbound faxes. Going down, you have your total phone numbers. Signed numbers, numbers you're actually using. Spare numbers means numbers that are on your account, and you can use them at any time, but right now you haven't made use of them. You are still being charged for them, though. And then a breakdown of between US and US toll-free. If you had international numbers, there'd be another option there. Your total devices, and then the breakdown of cell phone, soft phone, SIP, web phone, etc. Company directory. All right, so on a new account, you're going to want to set up the caller ID for the account. You can choose any of your phone numbers. Caller ID name, so this is for, especially for your VoIP users who make outbound calls. This is the name that would be associated with your phone number. One thing to keep in mind about CNAME, or CNAM as it's referred to, this is restricted to 15 characters. Once you update it here in Dash, it takes up to 3 business days for the relevant servers to be updated. And these are servers that are not actually maintained by VirtualPBX. They're actually maintained by several different carriers across the country. Now, not every carrier supports CNAM for whatever reasons. We don't know. We can't make them. So that will impact on what actually shows up on the destination of your call. Obviously, if there's any kind of problem with the data transmission, then that information also would not get through. And that could simply just because a carrier is having a maintenance issue of some type. And then lastly, anything on the device. So if your phone number is on, say, a cell phone, so when you call in, you can have a label for the contact information on your device. That information on the device will supersede whatever we send out. And that's going to hold true on any phone that you can add contacts to. Down below, we have your emergency address, or E911. Again, this is for VoIP phones. This is the address information that is sent to emergency services when you pick up a VoIP phone and dial 911. Obviously, you want to make sure this is accurate. And you can actually set this up per device or per user in case you have people at different locations. The hold music here, this is your default hold music on the system. You can have any file that you've already uploaded, or just simply choose upload and choose a file on your computer. The main thing to keep in mind is it needs to be either a .wav, .wav, or a .mp3, and no larger than 5 megabytes. And then you would just click upload. Also, for any media file that you upload to a phone system, you want to make sure that it is recorded in mono, not in stereo. Basically, when you listen to it over the phone, a phone is a mono or audio output. When you try to play a stereo recorded media file and listen to it over the phone, you're just going to hear a lot of static. You might be able to still hear the message or music, but not always. And then hours will take you to our subset of the main number. So we'll just go ahead and go to main number. All right, so first section, main company number or numbers. Again, shows all your numbers. These little icons let you know that, oh, okay, I've set up E911 on the 2702 numbers. This has inbound CNAM, so basically I'm accepting on inbound calls CNAM information on this number. For whatever reasons, I'm not on this one. Likewise, I have outbound CNAM on this number, but not on that. And then prepend is for VoIP phones only. Basically, call comes in on this number. You can have additional text in front of the number. This basically lets your staff know, oh, it's about this business, or it's about this promotion that we happen to be running at this time. And then the gear icon lets you adjust any one of those settings. You can sync, although that's not usually used. It's basically just to make sure your number's updated. So once you have a main number, then you have things like office hours strategies come up. So by default, new accounts have 24-hour open office, meaning you're open for business all the time. But most people use is they select custom office hours. You scroll down. So each day of the week you're open, you put a check mark, and then you put your open hours in 24-hour or military time. If you're closed, you just leave it unchecked. And then you also have the option here to put a check mark here if your office is closed for lunch hours. So basically everyone goes to lunch at the same time. You can say, hey, yes, we do this. Put us on lunch mode. And then you would click Save Changes. Next up, we have office holidays. You can set up your office holidays in advance. The main thing to keep in mind is for any holiday that the date changes, so like Memorial Day, the next year right? It's probably going to be a different date than it was this year. So you just want to keep in mind of that. And you can easily just say, okay, I'm not going to have, like this was already passed, probably not going to come again. I can just delete that. But adding a holiday, you have single day, date range, advanced. Single day, pretty self-explanatory, like this one right here. You give it a name, give you the month and date, that's it. Date range, go down here. Let's see, we've got, so you could simply set up a date range such as that. Scroll down and you see it's here. So basically for that date range, the system will put me in holiday mode. Now, just keep in mind is since there is no year option here, doing a date range over New Year's is problematical. So for that time of year, we recommend just using single days for each day that you're closed when you're covering just the New Year's, i.e. New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. Just do one for each. The advanced option was so you can do something like this one here, where you can choose a month and then like the 1st to 3rd, and then you can choose the day of the week. Next up, we have incoming call handling. So, and then you have these sub tabs. So your open hours tabs, you have a lunch hours tab, after hours, and a holiday. So you can set these up individually to route differently depending on which time setting you're dealing with. And the first option here, incoming call goes to the virtual receptionist. This is a link. And then here you go. So over on the left, this is your menu options. So this is how you set up for people to press 1 to go someplace, press 2 to go someplace else. So 1 is going to Borderlands, 2 is going to support, 3 is going to Ray, who's just a single person, 4 is going to our directory, and then 7 is going to Bob. Right, adding a route, pretty simple. You choose an available menu option, and you choose where you want it to go. We typically recommend having it go to a user or call queue if you're making use of queues, and a group. You can have it go to a voicemail box, like if you just want, like, please to leave a message, please press 5. For example, we don't recommend having it go directly to a device or to a media file. So like just to a media file, for example, once that media file stops playing, the call ends. So it might be a little abrupt for your customers. And then to a device, you might have problems making use of all the device features. Like, so having it just go to a VoIP phone, you might have problems transferring the call. Over here on the right, we have your various greeting options. Text to speech, you just type in what you want it to say and click update, and it's live. And you can edit this, like you can call in, that doesn't sound quite right. You can go here and edit it right on the fly. Upload your own file, again, a .wav or .mp3 under 5 megabytes. You want to make sure it's recorded in mono. Find the file on your computer and then upload. If you've already recorded like previous greetings, you can choose one that's here. So for instance, it's after the holidays, you want to just go back to your normal main greeting. It's already here. You don't have to re-record one. Recorded over the phone. So if you've not yet set up a greeting, then you can just call in. Now this, when it says pick up a registered phone on the account, this means a registered VoIP phone. Physical VoIP phone, like a Yealink, could be a soft phone, could be even the web phone on Dash. But then you can just call into your main number, and when you don't have a greeting set up, it says that no greeting has been set up for this number, and that's when you would just enter in this PIN number, and then the system will guide you through recording it over the phone. Now, and this system, I already have a text-to-speech greeting in place. So when that text-to-speech greeting starts to play, I can still enter this PIN number and re-record over the phone. Next, we have Professional Studio. This is where we've partnered with another company called Snap Recordings. And if you click order, it'll take you to their site. The advantage of this is the main advantage is they have like 100 different voice actors to choose from. They also have various options in terms of different forms of English or variations of English. You have Spanish and French, and then bilingual options as well. Snap Recordings has their own pricing and their own billing, so they're a separate company in that regard. They also have the option to do messages on hold, so basically a mix of a script and music, which is good for like your ringback for groups or hold music on ACDQs, etc. And then they handle sending you the file that then you can then upload to right here. Right, this tab here, incoming call, you can have it go to a user. Most likely you're going to a group and then to the virtual receptionist. So this is basically you want to have someone have a chance to answer a call first. If someone's not available, then it goes to the auto attendant. So yeah, I normally recommend people, if they want to use this, use a group. And then that way you have, ideally in a group, you have multiple people. If none of them are able to pick up, then caller goes to virtual receptionist. And this is still the same information here. And then lastly, call comes in, again, to user, to a group, queue. If no one's able to, or actually not a queue, but then if no one's able to pick up, go to voicemail. This one has the additional option of you can just have it skip to voicemail. This is probably most likely an after hours kind of option more than most. But again, each one of these has the same tabs. You can set up different virtual receptionists. Like this one isn't set up on this account, for example. So I could set up different routes. I can have completely different greetings, etc. Finally, you have your main fax box number. Basically, faxes come to this number. If you click edit next to edit fax box, you can then enter an email address, and this is the person who gets the faxes that come in and letting you know, hey, you have a fax, but that email also will have a PDF file that you can open up. Okay, numbers can show the numbers on your account. Starts you off on numbers in use, and it basically lets you know where those numbers are going. And then spare numbers. These are numbers you're not using. Once they're in spare, you can just click here, and then you have the option to delete. By numbers, it's just how the system adds numbers to the account. So like if you've just signed up, you don't have any numbers yet, you can come here to buy numbers, even under main number, and then pick a number back here. So local, you would want to enter an area code. Let us try. It says here, this is available. You click add, and you can click multiple, obviously. You click by number. System is validating that the number is actually still in the database and available. And then says, okay, let's activate it. So now it's on your account. And then the same sort of idea is under toll-free. Now, if any area code or even toll-free prefix comes up with none available, you can always email porting at virtualpbx.com and see if we can get a number for you still. We might have to back order it, which might take some time, but it's still something we can do. And that usually comes into place with regional area codes. So when the phone system was originally set up in the late 40s, there were something like 47 original area codes, I think. Either that or it was 1947 that it was set up, in that range. So those original area codes are almost completely exhausted now, or they've been, the numbers have been reused. And that's why they now have overlays for most metropolitan areas. So we may not be able to get some. So like New York City, I forget what their original area code is, but that's one of those hard to get ones. I know Toronto also, and Canada tends to be hard to get as well. Oh, you have the port process here, and this begins the port process. So let's go back here for a minute here. I think it's a little messy for me to try to do a fake one. But if we go here on the main VirtualPBX site, we have the whole porting process spelled out here. But this allows you to just initiate the port process within Dash itself. But the main thing is we need an LOA, which is a letter of agency, which you can find on the website as well as in the port process here. And then if it's a local number, we need a copy of the bill. So if you don't want to go through the portal to do it, you can just send both those documents to porting@virtualpbx.com, and we can go ahead and initiate the port request. Keep in mind that if you are porting a number to VirtualPBX, it's not instantaneous. Port requests for like a toll-free number usually takes about 3 to 5 business days, give or take. Local numbers can take anywhere from a day to 6 weeks, depending on interactions with the other carriers involved. Basically what happens on a port request, you give us a documentation, we make sure like the information matches up between like the bill you give us and the address you gave us on the LOA. We send that off to the other carrier. The other carrier hopefully responds to us quickly and lets us know, yes, it's accepted, here's the expected completion date, or they give us a rejection and they should give us a reason, like, oh, it's a bad address, or the authorized signature doesn't match, or whatever reasons. They get that to us, we then communicate that to you, like, sorry, the number was rejected, here's the reason we were given. And then either you have the alternate information, or you might have to contact your current carrier to find out what exactly they have on file. All right, so let's go move on to users. This is where you add a full user to the account. On this page, you'll notice that some people are a gray person and other people are blue with a little suit. The blue suited people are system admins, so they basically have all this access. Users are just strictly users, so they only have really access to, I can show you. When they log into Dash, this is basically all they get to see is their voicemail, any call history, faxes, contact list, conferences. This is as soon as you make use of conferencing. And then this is probably the most useful thing they use is their settings and devices, because they can set up their own call forwarding here if they want to. But that's all a standard user has. While as an admin, they have access to everything. All right, so adding a user, you just click on add a user, first name, last name, email address. Every user has to have their own email address. So like I couldn't use support@virtualpbx.com for myself and then use that email address again for Bob. Right? We would each have to have our own email address. You want to type in a password. So since I started this system with extension 1000, this system knows just to go down into the next 1000 series that's available. And then the main things you probably want to do is make sure that this one here is checkmarked. And that way, once you click on create user, the system emails this person, so that email address, their login information. All right, so once they're created, I'll click here. All right, so this is their information, their email. This is where they can, or where you can change their credentials. So if this person leaves, you can just reuse the extension number, for example, just change the name, change the email address, change the password. If you want other people to get the notifications that come to this user, so like voicemail, You can add the email address there, and then include company directory, yes or no. This is where you change a person from an admin to a user individually. One thing to keep in mind, especially for a new account, when your account's created, you're the first user. Do not, and you're set up as an admin. We've had a couple people accidentally change themselves to a user, and then click save, and then log out. And then when they log back in, they can only get to that user portal that I showed you previously. So please don't do that. This is your time zone. And this is the language that the system's in. And then main extension number. I have to have 2 extensions, but this is the one that's the system intrinsically tied to you. And let you know like when you have voicemails in that box specifically. And like especially if you have a VoIP phone and your VoIP phone has a voicemail indicator, that's the, so in this case, if I got a voicemail on extension 1000, my VoIP phone would have a light indicator saying, hey, you have a voicemail here. Whereas if a voicemail came into extension 1984, my VoIP phone isn't going to give me an indicator. That was the main function of the main extension number. You can have extensions with multiple extensions. Most people don't need to. The prime example I use is actually our VP of sales here. He's had a couple of staff members leave over the years, and he kept their extension numbers and had them directed to him, basically so that way he didn't miss any customer calls who were looking for a specific person, and then he can handle those calls or hand them off to new salespeople and introduce them properly, etc. This column here is phone number. So this is if you want to add a phone number that goes directly to a user. And you can add additional ones if you want. So again, this is if you want this person to not have to go through the menu, just go straight to this user. Typically for salespeople, tends to be the most common use. But for anyone really. Here's where you add devices to a particular user. And you can see all the devices on this user. So if you're adding from spare devices, this is the device you've already added to the account, usually under devices over there on the left. Or you can just simply click new device. All right, so SIP phone, this actually refers to an auto provisionable phone. So you can choose from any of these manufacturers. However, they have a different levels of, or number of phones available. So that's J-Link, so the Polycom list. OBI is fairly small. Grandstream's also fairly small. And then Cisco's basically in the middle. But basically for any of these phones, you select the phone model, and then you enter a name for the device, and then you enter the MAC address. This is a sticker on the back of the phone normally labeled MAC, sometimes labeled serial number. And then you would click to create device. You would then usually have to go into the phone itself, and they have a web UI and to allow for auto provisioning. And then once the phone reboots, it connects to us, and we give it the configuration information. Phones that you connect this way, basically you can use almost every feature on the phone. So like you can use this transfer button. You can make use of presence keys, or the DLF keys, I think they're often called, things of that nature. That's actually one of the key advantages of Dash and VoIP phones. Cell phone, and this is actually applies to landlines as well. Even though they have separate headings, again, put in the name. Always put +1 and then area code and phone number. And then under options, so when Dash sends a call to a cell phone or a landline, and you pick up on that device, you'll hear the system come on first saying, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1 to accept the call. If you don't want to deal with that, and you're okay with calls potentially ending up in, say, your cell phone's voicemail box, you can check this box here. So basically, once you pick up on your cell phone, we treat it as a connected call. Call goes through. So obviously, if your cell phone voicemail picks up, we still treat it like a connected call. So your business caller can end up on your personal cell phone's voicemail. Some people are fine with that. Some people hate it. Other times, people are using this to go because they're sending calls to an automated answering service. Again, you'd probably want this allow cell phone voicemail option enabled. Keep original caller ID. What this is sending you the caller ID of the person who's calling in, right? If you uncheck it, the caller ID that shows up on your phone is the VirtualPBX number they called into, right? So one of your main numbers. And then hide from contact list basically just hides it from the company directory. Soft phone. It's an application on a computer or even a smartphone, making use of your internet connection to make calls. You should read this, but basically that's for saying, hey, make sure your E911 information is updated. So you have a couple options. Right now, it defaults to third-party application. So a third-party application means a soft phone made by someone else, so not from VirtualPBX. And this is the information you'd use to program that application. You could also use this to program a VoIP phone that wasn't under the SIP phone heading. So say like you have an older Panasonic phone, for example, you could try to use this to set that up. Or if you're going to use the VirtualPBX soft phone, if you click on this box here, you would still put in a name and then click on create device. Now, when you use it for the VirtualPBX soft phone, the system will send you an email on this user. So whatever email address is on the user saying, hey, here's your login information for your phone. Here's where to download. Now, in the case of if you want the desktop VirtualPBX soft phone application, there is a license fee involved in that. So you're going to have to go to the online store to order one or contact our billing team. But the mobile app, there's no additional charge for it. So you can just set it up that way. But in other cases, again, you click on create device. So it shows up. Web phone. This is, again, the web phone that I showed you the login previous. You just put the name in here and click on create device. When you get to the web phone, so let's go back here. All right. You use the same username, password, and account name as you would in Dash. A couple things to remember about the web phone. You need to use this on a desktop or laptop computer on either Chrome or Firefox currently. We are working with Safari. I know for certain. I don't know about Edge or any other browser. It currently does not work on mobile versions of Chrome or Firefox. I know I've personally tried with Chrome on my cell phone. It didn't work. And I know that's something engineers are trying to make work, but I don't know how viable or how quickly that will work. But again, once you're logged in, so let's remember again. There we go. So you got your call history here, directory of people on the account, and then you can make calls out. And you also have your audio options here. That way you can select which devices you're using. But that's the web phone. If you click log out, and then you'll set and leave the page. Landline is essentially the same as cell phone. There actually is no difference that I've seen. Fax is for a digital fax. I don't know if a customer has made use of this. It's not for your standard run-of-the-mill analog fax machine, right? So most people, when they see fax machines, are like, oh, put it down, connect it to a phone line, it connects out. This is actually for a fax machine that connects to a network cable. And those are quite expensive last time I looked. ATA, this is for an ATA adapter. Now, some of the devices under SIP phones, like under Oberhigh and Cisco's, I think Grandstream also, those are also ATA. Some of those were ATA devices. So here, let's go back real quick. Oh, not Cisco. So these little flat boxes here on the Grandstream and then also on Oberhigh. So these are ATA adapters. If they're on this list, you should just be able to click on it and provision it that way. If you don't see it there, then yeah, you would have to go via ATA adapter. And again, this is the information you would use to program that device. And generally speaking, if you don't know what an ATA adapter is, it's to basically convert an analog phone to digital, so it goes onto your network to then use VoIP. 5-10 years ago, ATA adapters made lots of sense. People weren't quite trusting VoIP yet, or very comfortable with the phones they have. These days, VoIP phones are more fully featured than they used to be, and people are trusting VoIP more. It usually just makes sense just to go straight to a VoIP phone. All right, this next box here, this is the various user features. So the caller ID number, this only works on a user that has a phone number. But what this does, if you turn it on, they can say, use my caller ID phone number, right? So the phone number that comes to me, use that as my caller ID when I make outbound calls, right? If I turn it off, it just uses the account's main phone number. Call forwarding, probably this is most useful for VoIP phone users, is if you go to failover mode. So basically, system notices, hey, your VoIP phones aren't connected, but you have a call coming to your user. You can then set it up. Usually it's to a mobile phone for us. So put area code and phone number, and then click Save Changes. And so it's not on, it's just only on for failover mode. Now, a couple things to keep in mind with call forwarding. This phone number, right? So if it's to a cell phone number, it should not be a device on my user. So basically, for call forwarding, this should be something you use occasionally, whereas a device should be something you're using almost daily, right? So if you're using your cell phone every day on your user, then yes, it should be device on the user. If, however, you're typically using a VoIP phone, but you might occasionally need your cell phone because, you're going to be like at a customer site, for example, then you might then it's a good idea to make use of call forwarding. Hot desking, this is if you're in a shared office environment where people's desks and which VoIP phone they might be at may change from day to day. You would click Enabled. You put a hot desk ID. I say normally just put in their extension number. PIN, if you require it, that's up to you. Usually I just say make it a 4-digit one. And then basically what this does is, Monday I come into and I find the first open desk, get myself set up, pick up the VoIP phone. To get into hot desking from the VoIP phone, I hit *11. Then it asks me for my hot desk ID. I enter that, and then I would enter whatever PIN I chose. System says you're now logged in. So calls that then come to my user come to that phone I'm at. End of my day, I pick up the phone, I hit *, I believe it's 12, logs me out. Right? Tuesday I come in, blah, blah, blah. This guy was at on Monday, is already being used. So I have to go to a different desk, the other side of the room, log into the phone the same way. I still get my calls. Voicemail, every user has a voicemail box. And so voicemail is enabled. This tells you where it's going, etc. We do recommend that you delete messages from the database after you get the notification. So the notification also includes the attachment, so you can get to listen to your voicemail. But the voicemail boxes on Dash only hold up to 100 messages. So instead of making people have to remember to log back in and delete their voicemails, just, hey, we sent you the email, we'll delete it from the account at the same time. Fax box. So this is if you want a particular user to have their own inbound and outbound faxing, well, typically inbound. You can select a spare number from the account, you can buy a new number, or you can assign a new extension. Now, if you choose the extension, this is only for inbound faxing. If you have an actual phone number associated with it, you can use inbound and outbound. And then you just find an extension number that's not being in use. But then basically when you send an email out, or you want to send a fax out, you put in the phone number that you're going to, so one area code and phone number, and then and this is your account realm. And then you just make sure what you're sending out is a PDF file or a TIFF. And then it has to come from this email address, basically your user email address. One thing about faxing out that way is if your email client attaches a signature file, you're probably going to want to get that removed. The system cannot handle multiple PDFs. It has, basically when you fax out, it has to be all one document. Document size, you want to try to keep it under 5 megabytes. I know in testing, I've sent out a 7 megabyte file. However, it took over an hour for that file to actually be sent completely. And I guess it was also very compressed once it did go out. Right. Follow me calling. This is if you have multiple devices on your user. And this allows you to set up when those devices ring. So like you can have all your devices ring at the same time the whole time. You can also up here determine how long they're going to ring for. And this is for this up here number. This is for your entire user. So if you don't want your user to be ringing for 2 minutes, I can change it. Oh, I only want calls to ring here for 60 seconds total. Distribute, again, you can say, okay, going to go in series because if I'm not at this phone, then I should be at this one. If not, then I need to be at this. I should be at this one. After that last one, it would go to my voicemail box. If you want to change the order, you just click and drag the phone up, and then you can redistribute. Music on hold. This is if this user puts the inbound caller on hold. You would click enable, and then you would click a file of whatever you want them to listen to while they're on hold. Customize call recording. So if you're making use of call recording, you can turn them off and on. The system default is typically off. Inbound internal means another user on the system called me. Inbound external means someone outside of my Dash account called me. Likewise, outbound internal means I called another user or agent, and then outbound external means I called a customer. For call recording, I believe we just announced that we're including that in all plans. However, there is a storage fee associated with it. So that should be on our website. I don't know what the storage fee is currently. All right, groups. Shorthand for ring groups or a hunt group is sometimes what it's referred to as. Basically, you want a call to go to a group of people or a department. Adding a group, and you put in a name. So let's see, we shall call this. Then you want to give it an extension number. And this is for your own staff members to transfer that call to that ring group. And then you click and drag all the people you want in this group, and then you click Create Group. Here it is. If you click on the name of the group again, or for the first time, I guess, you can always change the name here. And then dialing repeats, got a little arrow. You can click this up. So basically what this is telling the system is calls can come in this case, 3 times, right? So a caller can come in, ring everyone in the group. No one's able to pick up. Oh, we'll send it back to them again, and then a 3rd time. And that's actually a new addition to ring groups. Like I want to say it's a month too old now. In members, so again, you have your ring duration set up here, and how do you want it set? So you can set them all to be like this. So this is, by the way, when you do something like this all the way across, this is referred to as blast ringing within the industry. One thing to keep in mind is when calls come into a ring group and they go to a user, so like my user here has multiple devices, all my devices are going to ring at the same time. So that can be kind of irritating for some of your users, so keep that in mind. But yeah, basically for 2 minutes, every user's phone is ringing. Obviously, if one of these users picks up, the call ends, and so it doesn't keep ringing on everyone else. The downside is, say, like if Charles picks up a call and another call comes in while he's still on the call, he will still hear like a call waiting beep on his phone, or if he has other devices, he'll hear them ring. You can always click distribute, so each person gets a call for a little bit of time, and then likewise, you can say, oh no, this is the order I want people to be in. Actually, let's put Mike at the top, and then you can click redistribute. And then save changes. You can add multiple extension numbers to a ring group. Phone number, again, just kind of like a user, goes straight to the ring group. So for instance, you have a special advertising campaign and you publish a particular phone number, say from one of my spare numbers, you could then, and in fact here, so we'll get that 213 number I added earlier. And then save changes. So now when anyone calls this 213 number, it goes straight to this ring group here, and my group members' phones start ringing. So not a bad way to keep track of an advertisement campaign, for example. Groups have features. So the most important one I'm going to start off with, this is next action. Basically, if no one picks up the phone, what do you want the system to do with the call? So you can send them back to the main menu, right? So the open hours, the virtual receptionist, or most commonly used, send it to a voicemail box. You can also send it to a specific user. You can send it to devices, which again, not something we typically recommend, but again, most common is you send it to a voicemail box. All right, call recording. This is for the group. If you enable it, that means all the calls that come into the group are recorded. Nothing about outbound, because all it is worry about calls that come into the group. Bring back. This is essentially hold music while people are waiting. And the main thing to remember is if you're making use of hold music, is that to make sure the length of that file matches or exceeds this amount of time. So 120 seconds. Unfortunately, I don't know why, the system doesn't automatically loop the ringback music. So you have to make sure it at least matches, if not exceeds, your ringback timer. Allow call forward. This allows the users that are in the ring group to make use of call forwarding, i.e. they know they're not going to be at their VoIP phone, have the calls go to their cell phone. And then caller ID prepend, again for VoIP phones, you can add a name prefix or even a number prefix. And this lets your staff members know, oh, it's for call for this group. Especially helpful if you have members in multiple different ring groups, so they know which one they're dealing with. Devices, these are all the devices on your account. And then there's some here that aren't associated with the user. Basically, the ones that are associated with the user should be your active devices. These are the ones that are making and probably more specifically receiving calls. If they're not associated with a user, they're not going to be ringing properly. Voicemail boxes. So every user automatically has a voicemail box created for them at the time of their creation. That initial voicemail box for the user is intrinsically tied to that user, and that's why you notice here it has a user underneath it. You scroll down, you have these other voicemail boxes, and they don't have a user associated with. These are the ones you typically would associate with a ring group for voicemail, for example. If for some reason, and we've had this happen a couple times, you come here and you decide to delete the voicemail box of a user, and then realize that was a mistake, and you try to recreate it, and you give it Charles's name and try to give it his extension number. Calls to Charles won't go to that voicemail box you just created separately. So basically, in that case, you actually have to delete the user and recreate it. It's one of those things we hope that our engineers will fix. At least it's been requested. Agents are specific to ACD queues. So if you're making use of ACD queues, you're going to want to make use of agents. Agents, they can only receive calls from the queue. They don't have any features. Now, adding an agent is exactly like adding a user in terms of add agent, put their name, email address, password. They can have an extension number, etc. Right, if you look at the agent setup, in fact, looks almost identical to a user. You can dial their extensions directly from the system if you know it. Yeah, at some point, I don't know why this is disabled right now, but you can eventually add phone numbers directly to an agent. And then you can add devices to an agent. However, within ACD queues, agents can only have VoIP devices. So any of the SIP phones, a soft phone, or a web phone. They cannot make use of cell phone or landlines in an ACD queue. Feature codes, these are also published on our website. But basically, from a VoIP phone, these are the things you can use to say, like, log into your ACD queue. This is how you can set up your call forwarding from your phone instead of going through the web UI. Hot desking, enable, disable. Basically, that's log in or log out. And then probably the most common one, check your voicemail, *97. Call logs. This is the raw call data that has come into the account. And then you can even click on this little gear icon afterwards and get the full details. I unfortunately do not know what all this information means. And this is actually what the data that our engineers are trying to use to make use of, get more detailed or advanced reporting available to customers. I don't know when that's coming, unfortunately. Okay, as an admin, you also have additional options underneath what we call the hamburger menu over here. So we're on the dashboard right now. Next up is queues. Again, this is your ACD queues. You show the queues you have on the account. I click on the gear. These are the settings. This is actually the same page as if you're setting up a queue. Give it a name. You give it an extension number so people can transfer it. You can also select a phone number since I can do that. So now when people call this toll-free number, they go directly into my support queue, for example. The main advantage a queue has over a ring group is the routing options. So round robin, essentially, it's fairly random. Over the long haul, it will equalize out. Everyone will have the same amount of calls. Least calls means the least number of connected calls. So you have 5 users in your queue. Most of them have like 3 to 5 calls that they've connected to. But you have one guy who, let's say he got in late. He only has 1 connected call. The system is going to send him the next call that comes in until his number of calls matches some of the other people. Least offers means the number of calls that have been offered to a user. Doesn't mean they've been connected. Just means you've got the least amount offered to you. And then most idle, who's been waiting for the call the longest. You can select hold music or upload your own file. Queue timeout, this is basically your hold duration for the people, your customers who are waiting on hold. Measured in seconds. I'm not sure why that was chosen that way, but queue call limit, this is the number of people who are allowed to wait on hold. 0 means effectively as many as you want. Timeout immediately if empty. If empty, meaning if you have no agents logged in. And then that basically means, oh, there's no one in the queue, send them to these next options here. Escalation queue, meaning no one in your queue was able to answer the call or they weren't logged in, send them to this, then you can send them to one of your other queues. Or if you don't have that, so you have it set to none, then you can say, okay, send it to this voicemail box. Then agent behavior. Recovery time, basically at the end of a call, you're giving your agents a breather, right? They can get a sip of water, maybe finish up writing their ticket, etc. Force away on rejected or missed. Basically, your agent missed a call. You can put them in away mode, meaning they have to go in themselves and put them back in ready mode. And then how much time they have to answer a call. All right, so this is your actual queue monitor. And if you clicked on this, if I had agents logged in here and active, they would show up here and you could see what their status was. Likewise, I'm going to skip over here to monitor. This shows all your users. Green means they're ready to take a call, right? Ready and waiting to take a call. If they're blue, then, and that's over here on the left, if they're blue here, that means they're on an inbound call. If they're red, that means they are marked away. If they are yellow/gold, that means they're on an outbound call or external call. And that's the same color coding I would use under queues. All right, let's go back up to blacklists. Blacklists is something you want to use to block a phone number from reaching your system. So you'd click on edit blacklists. You can click add new, or we'll just go to cuckoo. And basically you would just add a number. You put +1 area code and phone number. You would click save. Go back to settings. And then, so you have your available and your selected. Selected means that they're in use. So I can move this over and click update. And now that blacklist I just quote edited is now in effect. So calls from that particular number won't get through. Now, you can have many numbers on a list. I think I have a few on this, right? So I have a few numbers on this list here. Well, it looks like one's repeated. But you can have multiple numbers on a particular list instead of having multiple ones. The faxes, as an admin, you can get to anyone's fax box. So you can see what's in their faxes, see what they've sent out. and then the email to fax logs. Email to fax logs under details. If there's an error or a problem sending the fax out, there might be additional information here for you. Recordings actually sends you to the recording site, which I am actually blocked from. User portal I've already shown. Voicemails, this is exactly like the fax boxes. You can get to any user's voicemail box. And then the last one here is webhooks. This makes, if you're making use of APIs, this is where you would go. Basically, that's a special feature you have to have enabled and pay for. Unfortunately, support and myself, actually, we don't have any information on how to make the webhooks work specifically. That's a lot of, basically gets into programming, or at least more involved than the information that support has to deal with. Basically, support has enough on their plate in terms of just helping customers getting set up and or troubleshooting their VoIP phones. Oh, one other thing, you can always get your web phone from up top here. Also, at the very top, if you click on your name here, this gets you your account information. This is a test account, so it doesn't have everything. For you, you would also have an additional billing section here. So there you can get your updated, like your most recent invoices, for example. Excuse me. But then you could also change like your time zone, etc. And that is everything for Dash. If you have any questions, you can, I think there's a chat feature somewhere. Beyond that, yeah, there's a group chat. You can always sign up for another training. We have recordings of this training as well as some for specific features on our website. And in fact, so Dash support, if you go here, you'll have some videos as well as the write-ups for various features and some VoIP phones. If you are a new sign-up, you should be getting contacted by one of our onboarding specialists. They will basically walk you through getting set up and customized to how you want your system set up versus the generalist information we just went through here. And if you need to the LOA, it's also right here. Beyond that, thank you for your time and have a wonderful day.